Hello and welcome back to AVR120, Session 8. Today we're going to be talking about classes and an introduction into object-oriented programming. So what is a class? Class is, in general, a class is a building block of an application, but for our RPG, it can be like a D&D, Dungeons and Dragons template. Okay, so you see the template has, your character's name and the class, right? Be like the warrior class. It has a level, it has strength and intelligence, and all those other extra pieces, skills, right? All those extra pieces there. So a class is like a template, right? So, um, you know, this translates directly to Dungeons and Dragons in the sense that like you could have a class such as a warrior, and this would be like a public class that you would be able to access anywhere in your application, and this class would have a character name, right? So the character's name, its level, its hit points, its strength, right? And its intelligence. So um, these are it's kind of essentially a template. Um, a class is a template, code template that allows you to create copies of this template. So we call that an instance. So every you can make different versions of the warrior class, right? You could have him be a different name, and you could start maybe at a different level, or maybe have a higher strength or a higher intelligence, right? Um, but he'll still have the warrior. He or she will still have the same uh, set of statistics that they can have. So, what is an? I kind of spoke a little bit about how a class can create copies of itself, and those copies are called objects. And so, the formal is it's an instance of a class. All right, we call that an instantiation of a class, basically a copy um, of a class or from that comes from a class. So, if a class is kind of like a template, um, the warrior, uh, you know a warrior named Bilbo or something would be the instance of the class. So, yeah, in Dungeons and Dragons, a character created from a Dungeons and Dragons template. Another way to think of it is like a class could be like a blueprint for a house, right? Um, but out of that blueprint, you could create, a version of that house, but maybe you modify it a little bit, or it has, a different, different structures in it or something that the you know consumer requested. So that blueprint essentially is the class, and then the actual house that gets built is the instance of that class. And you can have multiple houses built from that template. And maybe they could all be slightly different, but they are all coming from that same blueprint. Okay, so uh, the public warrior class has all these statistics, all right, and so we're going to create an object from this class, and so we'll create a warrior called, my adventurer, and this is the syntax for that. So you'd have the data type is actually warrior. It's the warrior class. It's essentially class is like a custom data type, and so we're creating a warrior class, and that warrior class, all right, has all these different statistics on it, and this is the name of the of the instance of that class. This is the variable name essentially. So this is the my adventurer, all right, and we'll set that equal to using the new keyword, and then uh, this is the syntax for that. You have your class. uh, name, and then in the parentheses, you would have all of the essentially fields that would be filled in at the time of the uh, initialization or the creation of that object from that class. So in this case, you'd have a warrior from the warrior class. You'd have Bilbo would be his name, and he would have maybe 11 hit points, and he'd be level 10, and he'd have 14th strength, and he'd have 10 intelligence. So again, this is kind of just trying to reiterate that basically, you know, um, it's of the type of the contents of this class is of the warrior class. Okay, is the warrior statistics here, and the actual specific object name that comes from this class, so that we create an object that's going to be Bilbo. So Bilbo is a warrior um, type character. All right. So if the class is kind of like a type, a character type, right? You could have like a mage or a warrior. Bilbo would be the warrior type, or would be an object of the warrior class. So creating an object is um, not too complex. Just some information. A class is a custom data type, and it's more complex than just an int or a string. Okay, and out of the Dungeons and Dragons template for warrior, you create my adventurer. So out of warrior, you'd have my adventurer, and that would be a new warrior type of warrior there. So properties, all right, are containers for data inside of classes. They're very similar to variables. Um, so this allows class variables to be hidden from the rest of the program while still being able to be manipulated. Okay, this is one of the pillars of object-oriented programming. It's called encapsulation. Um, it's basically a way to hide the data from other parts of the program, but still give other parts of the program access to it so that if the data gets changed, it doesn't fundamentally change the class and cause weird behavior that you're not going to be able to anticipate or understand. So the in Dungeons and Dragons, the class templates are the stats and things like the gold that it's holding and the experience and things like that. Um, and basically, uh, all of the statistics you would need for that class there. So as we kind of stated before, these are the properties, and essentially they are the class's variables that holds kind of their data. And in order to access those properties, we need to use dot notation. And so, we create an instance of the word class called my adventurer here, and then we go ahead and we set the my adventurer character name property to Bilbo by using what's called dot notation. So we have the class, and then we go ahead and we use a dot, and then we put the property name, and we set that equal to whatever string we want that to be, or data we want that to be. If this was, um, like it's his gold or something, the character's gold, you'd set it here as well. and then we could go ahead and print this to the screen and say the adventure's name is, and print it off that way. In addition to all the things we kind of just talked about, those properties, um, we can also create what's called a constructor. And so a constructor allows us to quickly instantiate an object and set its default values. Okay. Um, and then the values are set to properties. So I kind of showed you those properties before. This is how you would set those properties initially, so that when the class gets, or excuse me, when the object of the class gets created, you need to have all of these values, essentially, all these values are set to a default um, value, and then when the class gets created, you can um, go ahead and you need to fill these in when the class is instantiated. When the object is instantiated. So in this case, you have the warrior's character name, um, hit points, level, strength, intelligence, and experience, all ints, and then a string. And essentially, what's happening here is that you're accessing this object's character's name, and you're setting that property equal to uh, the string, the character name string, and the hit points are equal to the hit points. So basically, this is just what allows those properties to be set to those initial values when you instantiate an object. And so this is what that would look like essentially. So this is declaring and initializing two new instances of the warrior class and setting their properties. So we have my adventurer, the first one, and he's a new instance of the warrior class, and his name's Bilbo. He is level 1. He has 10 hit points, 14 strength, and 10 intelligence. Whereas Warrior Adventurer 2 is the Warrior Rambo, and he's level 5. He has 50 hit points, 24 strength, but he's not very intelligent. He only has 2 intelligence there. Um, so let's go back to the code here. And actually, what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to create a new console application. You can use if you want to try to like refactor the prior code and make it into something different, you can. But I think just starting from a fresh slate here is what I'm going to prefer. So I'm going to go ahead and just go ahead and search for Visual Studio 2019, and I'll open a copy of it. Um, and I will create a new project. And I'll go ahead and I want this console app, the .NET framework, and I will go ahead and call this um, Object RPG. And I'll go ahead and create. Okay, so now we have a kind of an empty blank slate here. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and create some classes now. So there's a couple ways you could do this. You could technically do it in this main program here, but honestly, generally classes are separate files. So what you can go ahead and do is go up to the project option, and you'll see add class, right? So you can also do Shift Alt C for the quick keys there. So we'll go ahead and add the class. And we'll see here that we have the class option. And we'll go ahead and we can name it whatever we'd like. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and name this Warrior. So we can see here that the um, Warrior class was created when we went ahead and did that via the project menu option there. And so now what we can go ahead and do is start creating the Warrior class, and we'll start with its properties. Okay, so one of the main concepts of object-oriented programming is what I had mentioned earlier again, which is encapsulation. And what that means is making it so that the data is accessible but is hidden so that essentially if other parts of the program need to access it, it can't like alter the data itself. It alters essentially the property of the class, which is a copy of the variable or the field that's makes up the class template. So we'll kind of just go ahead and get started, and I'll kind of walk us through this the more we write this out. So the first thing we want to create is a public string variable, okay, called character name. And you'll notice that there's an access modifier here, so it says public, okay? What that means is that everything in the program has access to this variable, okay? So if I want to access this character name in my main program, so I switched over to the main program here, I can do so, okay, by creating an instance of the class and then using dot notation to access that variable. Um, it The access specifier basically just means that you're able to access those variables anywhere throughout the program. Um, there's also private, and if it was private, that means that only the variables, only the class has access to those variables. In this scenario, we want everyone to have access to these. We want the entire application to have access to this. So we're going to do get and set. So these get and set methods are further way to encapsulate these variables. And again, we'll just keep going down the line here. So I have hit points, and you'll notice that it's different. These are written differently from the variables in that they have the property names have capital letters. And these getter and setter methods, these here are essentially what hides the data from the other files in the application. So public int level. kind of thinking, as I'm writing these, thinking about what statistics we would want to have the warrior class have. I forgot one getter setter method. And then we can do something like public int armor. Okay, so now we have all these properties here. All right. And if we save this, all right, we can now, if we went back to the main program, we could create a, and you'll see warrior, when you start typing in warrior, pops up as a data type. And so we can call this my adventurer. And this will be a new instance of the warrior class. And we do not have a constructor yet, so this is just what we're writing for the warrior class. And if I wanted to get access to the, you can see that all these wrenches are the properties when I do the dot after the my adventurer. So again, I'll show you that. I did that hand quick, but so I typed out my adventurer, and then I put a dot, and now I have access to all of these properties here. So if I wanted to get access to that character name, I can double click that, or I can left click that, and I can set that equal to Bilbo. And now if I do console.writeLine and I write the my adventurer dot character name value and print that to screen, and I save it, and now I run it. I forgot to put read line. Console.net write line, read line there. I'll save it and I'll run it again, and you'll see it says Bilbo. So that's how you access a class's properties there. So going back to the warrior here, so these are public variables that we can, properties that we can access. This is what, those properties look like. And so we can kind of move on to constructors here. And so a constructor is a way to create an instance of a class and make sure that it gets initialized, make sure that it has a default set of values that it gets kind of set to. So, and I'm just going to label this properties. And then we can go ahead and create the constructor here. Oh, and I'm going to go ahead and create a list of strings to called inventory. And we'll go ahead and now we will initialize this class or create a constructor for this class so that we can set all of these values right when we create the instance of the class. So character name, and the way this is written essentially is like a normal parameter variables here. So int hit points, int level, int strength, int intelligence, int experience, and int armor, and the list. Oh, and I forgot to add gold. And that's after armor, so I'll put that over here. And we'll go ahead and do the curly braces here, and we'll go ahead and start setting this up. So we'll use the this keyword, which refers to this object essentially, and we'll set character name equal to character name. So this dot hit points will be set to the parameter hit points. This dot um, strength will be set equal to strength. And I missed one here. So this dot um, level equals level. This dot intelligence equals the intelligence parameter. This dot experience equals experience. This dot armor equals armor. This dot gold equals gold. And this dot inventory equals inventory. And so now, if we go back to the program here, you'll see we get an error where we're instantiating the class. And it says, if you look at it, it says no argument given that corresponds to the required formal parameter character name of warrior.warrior, and then it has that long list that we've essentially set the constructor to. We also see all of the essentially variables or parameters that we had in the constructor signature um, that we need to initialize this to. So we'll go ahead and We can call the first section would be the name, and then you can see it highlights each one we're on. So we're on hit points. We can give them 10 hit points and level 1, a strength of 5, an intelligence of maybe a strength of 10, an intelligence of 5. Experience is, um, we'll just put 0. Armor, we can put like 5 as well. Gold, I'll give them 10 gold. And then a list of strings. So once you've initialized the other values, you want to go ahead and initialize the list. And in order to do that, you need to use the new keyword, the list keyword, and a string, and a parentheses at the end of it as well. And so that will initialize an empty list of strings, and we can further add to that as we see fit. So that's going to go ahead and do it now for the current class, and we will go over some additional content as well. Thank you.